Principles of Finance, a la Shmup. The Sauce Kings, common versus preferred stock, and a few other flavors of shares thrown in for spice. Yep, we're back to the Sauce Kings. Let's see how things are looking for them. Artie and Bernie shake hands with Reed, but then notice something odd in the contract. Reed's $500,000 buys a different class of stock than the stock that Artie and Bernie own. Well, Reed's stock is preferred, and while theirs is just common. Feeling gently insulted, they ask Reed about this, and he explains that this flavor of preferred stock doesn't pay a dividend and has no fancy terms, really. In many venture deals, preferred stock at this stage will carry other terms, usually favorable to the investor, the most common of which is liquidity preference multiples. For example, for a 2x lick pref, the investor gets double his money back before the common shareholders get a dime. In this story, Reed owns convertible preferred stock, and the founders own common stock. So that means when he wants to, Reed can convert his preferred into common. Also, in most cases, and especially in public firms, preferred shares don't vote or have any preemptive rights like anti-dilution provisions. And like us, preferred stocks don't mature. They just sit there paying out dividends twice a year until they're called, i.e. bought back by the company or disposed of in other ways, right? So as Reed points out, since he's risking his own cash and has little control over the day-to-day operations of the business, he deserves to get his cash out preferentially before they do. It's the only protection he has, so, that's it. If things go great, well, then his preferred's convertible into common, like at an IPO or if they sell the company to Google, and then everything is all the same common flavor of stock. But if things go awry and Reed must step in and liquidate the company because Artie and Bernie miss their profitability target numbers and have to raise more money, diluting themselves and diluting Reed, well, then Reed should have a preference over that, right? If bad things happen and Reed can sell the company for only $300,000, well, then Reed keeps all that $300,000. He still lost money, by the way. Artie and Bernie, well, they get nothing. If Reed can sell the company for only $600,000 at some eBay-style auction, well, then Reed gets back his full $500,000 first. Then of the remaining $100,000, well, the guys split the proceeds, a third. All right, well, Reed wrote a sharp term sheet, he's done this before. The claim that the common stockholders would have against this kind of liquidation is called a residual claim to assets. It's the last thing in the bread line at the soup kitchen should things go awry. That's common stock. Well, Artie and Bernie consider the various options and recognize that Reed is one smart cookie. The first thing he points out is how poorly the portable barbecue business scales. It requires huge amount of labor, it can't operate on rainy days, it carries all kinds of risk of an explosion or a customer burning himself on the grill and other possible disasters, right? Well, Reed suggests they put a barbecue setup in the top 1,000 malls in the country just so that the smoky smell of their awesome sauce acts as a marketing agent, the way Mrs. Fields' cookies did in the 80s. The baking chocolate smell in those days filled the air ducts in the halls of malls and lured people to the kiosks like mosquitoes to that little buzzing purple light thingy. Well, the guys thought, wow, what a great idea. And they agreed to just bottle the sauce and sell it as their only product, the same way WD-40, and well, really Google, is a one-product company. Artie and Bertie dream a bit and realize that as young 21-year-olds, well, they have more greed than fear about this opportunity. They think that there is a company worth millions in here somewhere and they want to ferret it out. Well, at this juncture, the guys shake hands and assess their situation. Consigliere High does the legal work to create the Sauce Company Corporation out of thin air by filling out a few forms with the government and registering the company in Delaware. Forming the Sauce Company into a corporation is a really good idea because it protects Artie, Bertie, and Bubby, and likely anyone else remotely attached to the company from liabilities arising from, say, a bankruptcy. If the company went bust, only its assets would be lost. The assets from A and B's bar mitzvah savings would be left intact, like lawyers couldn't touch it. This is called limited liability, and it's good if you're a founder owner, and it exists to protect founder owners from, getting sued into living in a station wagon or something. There's a fair amount of record keeping that must be done here. How many tons of onions will be bought, how much they will cost, how how much will be collected from the sale of sauce bottles to Safeway, etc. Well, A and B know that if they produce great results and someday go public, well, they'll live under the scrutiny of public investment regulators, way stricter than private ones, and will have to annually produce conforming financial statements, give lists of stockholders, and so on. As a private company, they don't have these obligations, but in order to go public in the future, well, they'll need to have an auditable trail of years of records. So Reed's advice is heard. They start the record keeping now. The company High creates has 1 million shares outstanding at first, which he normally sets as being worth 1 penny each. Artie and Bernie buy 500,000 shares each for $5,000. They made this much just from their one barbecue stand in the 3 months during which it operated. They are the founders, right? That penny a share is the initial par value of the stock. It really doesn't mean anything for future investors, but there needs to be some value assigned to that stock when a company is formed. And that term, by the way, also has nothing to do with golf. For par value stock, you get a pretty piece of paper that's supposed to feel like it was printed on the macabre dead skin of a sheep. It's called the stock certificate. But the company sold Reed convertible preferred stock for $1 a share. Well, the preferred is worth way more than the common at this point, but the common is clearly worth more than a penny. So what's it worth? A nickel? A dime? Well, the company will have to place a value on that common at some point with the help of the bank's lawyers. It's a 409A valuation. That's what it's called, 409A. If it's a nickel, well, then the 4-cent theoretical gain is now a balance sheet asset. Yay, for them, they have assets. And it's called paid-in capital or capital surplus. Yep, something like that. All right, well, then A and B turn around and sell the preferred stock to Reed at 100 times the price next week. How can this be legal, you may reasonably ask? Well, the odds of the sauce company going bankrupt at this point are extremely high. If it does, there are really no assets to sell. So it is, in fact, reasonable that the common stock is worth a small fraction of what the preferred stock is worth. At this point, anyway. The dream of dreams in times gone by is that, well, someday the two classes of stock convert into that one class and that common truly does become worth $1 a share. The company realizes that it will need to raise more capital over time and that many more shares will have to be printed over time for other investors, so it has authorized another 10 million shares to be printed in the future. They're just authorized, or like provisionally, optionally okie dokied. That is, if the company needs to bring them out of the back vault of Bubby's garage, it can, but while they sit there, they mean almost nothing as far as valuation or ownership of the company goes. They're that nerdy guy who watches Star Trek on DVD Saturday nights. If ever needed, he's a phone call away from being a drinking buddy or a date, depending on your persuasion.